9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Internet. We're going to be baking our way through this book right here. This is the basics of what Paul Hollywood thinks is the cream of the crop must know in order to be a successful baker. My one goal in life, earn a Paul Hollywood handshake. I can't do that unless I know all of the basics of what he deems the ultimate guide to baking. Let's see how it goes. All right, let's get started with his first recipe in the book, the basic white tin bread. This is your basic sandwich bread in a loaf pan. Pretty simple. I've never personally made this recipe, but it looks pretty easy, so let's do it. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I've got 400 grams of strong white bread flour plus extra for dusting. I'm pretty partial to King Arthur bread flour. I just find that the protein content is just the right amount for bread. I really like it. So, but you know, use whatever you have on hand, what's available to you. So I've got 400 grams of that in a bowl, 8 grams of salt, and then you put it on one side of the bowl. And then I've got 7 grams of instant yeast. I'm pretty partial to the Fleischmann's active dry yeast. Make sure that you put this in the fridge when you open it. The stuff does need to stay cold so it stays alive. So put this on the opposite side of the bowl that you're working on from the salt. You don't want them to come together because the salt will inhibit the rise for the yeast. Okay, and then I've got 25 grams of unsalted butter softened. I definitely recommend thinking ahead. If you are not like me, you can think ahead and take your butter out and put it on the counter so that it softens to room temperature. So you're gonna stick that right in here. Don't be afraid to use your fingers. You're gonna be using your hands a lot during this process. And then just stick it right in there. Oh, and this is Tillamook butter if anybody's curious. I live in Oregon. I'm a Tillamook girl, but you can use whatever you've got. I've got 250 mils of cool water. I'm gonna add about 2/3 of this, roughly. Just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm gonna just start kind of working this around with my fingers, just in, you know, some circular motions. I'm gonna break up that butter a little bit because it's not perfectly softened, but that's okay because my hands are nice and warm. And then this will start to kind of come together slowly. It's a little bit shaggy right now, but just keep working with it. We are learning together. This isn't my first go around with bread. I really do enjoy making bread. This is kind of my first like tin bread. I usually make like a free form, like a cob loaf, and we're gonna make that later on. That's in this book as well. I'm gonna add a little bit more water because it's looking really dry in here, and then I'm just gonna keep kind of going around with my fingers. You're more than welcome to use a mixer with this. I like to go in with my hands. It's just the way that I prefer to do it, but you can do whatever you want. This is your bread. The world is your oyster. I'm adding a little bit more water because we're still looking pretty dry in here. I noticed that I've got some little dry bits on the side there, so I'm going to kind of scrape those up. And I can tell that my dough is becoming cohesive. So we've got, the bottom is still a little bit wet and sticky from the water that I just added. So I'm going to keep working on it. And if the water that the recipe calls for is not enough and you notice that you're still having a really hard time getting it to come together, add a little bit more. You know, it's totally okay. Okay, so I've got a pretty cohesive ball here. And as you can see, most of the dough has kind of come off the sides of the bowl. So I think I'm about ready to start kneading on my work surface. So I'm gonna ditch this bowl to the side. I'm not gonna completely get rid of it yet because I definitely want to use it later for a rise. So I'm gonna get my hands a little bit cleaner so I can put some oil on my surface, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna knead the dough. I'm gonna start kneading on my work surface. So just make sure that your work surface is clean. For a bread like this, you want to use an oil for kneading instead of a flour, just because the more flour that you add, the more kind of tough your dough is gonna be. And this is gonna be a nice soft sandwich bread, like something that you would make a classic PB&J out of. So you're gonna want it to be as soft as possible. So we're not gonna add any more flour than necessary to it. I'm just gonna add a little drizzle over there, and then we're just gonna kind of coat the surface that we think we're gonna use. And then you can even go out of that a little bit if you want, just to be safe so it's not sticking to your countertop. Okay, and then you've also got oily hands, and this is not a bad thing. You can even kind of rub it around just so that you don't get any dough stuck to anywhere. Also, shout out to Holo Taco for these super cute tea-inspired nails. Okay, so we're just gonna start kneading. And this is gonna keep going for about 5 to 10 minutes. And at the beginning, it's gonna look lumpy, it's gonna look bumpy, it's gonna feel rough. It's gonna be really easy to like break apart. It just immediately breaks when you pull on it. And we don't want that. So we're gonna knead it until it feels a little bit soft and supple. You're gonna notice that the outside kind of starts to develop a bit of a skin. And it's gonna be nice and smooth and beautiful and silky. So the outside is nice and smooth, it's soft, it's supple, it's not sticky anymore. And I really like where we're at. So what we're gonna do next is I'm just gonna kind of roll it into a little bowl, just like that. And then I'm gonna take that bowl that I had, and it's okay that it's got those little shaggy bits on the inside of it. I'm not worried about that because we're gonna oil the bowl inside this big bowl, just like that. And then I'm gonna rub it around and make sure that the inside is coated really nicely. We are coated, and then I'm just gonna take this little dough ball and plop it in there. So I'm gonna use one of these, and then we're gonna cover him, and we're gonna let it sit and rise until it's at least doubled in size. The dogs have been walked, and let's clean up all this oil off the countertop so we can move on. I'm just using Mr. Clean Freak Deep Cleaning Mist, not sponsored, just to get the kind of greasy film of the olive oil that we used earlier off of the counter. Let's take a look at our loaf. Look at that. Oh my God. Look how plump and beautiful and smooth it looks. You can see if I prod it with my finger, it bounces back just a little bit. I'd say that that's about doubled in size. You can leave it a little bit longer if you want to, but I think we're gonna just work with that. So first, you're gonna wanna get yourself a little loaf pan. This is mine. It's just like a Rachel Ray loaf pan. I'd probably choose something different if I had another one, but this is what I got, so we're gonna use it. We are going to oil our loaf pan. I'm just using plain extra virgin olive oil. Just a little bit. And you can do this with like a paper towel if you want. You can do it with like a pastry brush. I'm just using my hands because they are nature's tools. We're gonna make sure we get it really good all over. You don't want it to stick. And then I'm gonna get like the tops here too, because I think that this is probably gonna balloon up a little bit. We are going to form this bad boy into a loaf. I've never done this before, so we're gonna be learning together. So first you're gonna want to flour your work surface. And then we're gonna take our little risen guy here, and we're just gonna And give it a little help if it needs. Oop, there it is. That looks beautiful. Okay, so first shape into a ball by folding the dough inwards repeatedly until all the air is knocked out and the dough is smooth. Okay, so your goal is to get all the air out of this. So you're going to go ahead and knock all the air out of it. So you don't have to be gentle about this either, which is great. Like I said, dough is really great if you are having a rough day or you just want to get a little aggression out. Oh, I can hear some of those popping. Okay. Dough is smooth. So I can hear some air still coming out of it, so I'm just gonna work it just a little more to get all those bubbles popped. Then form into an oblong by flattening the dough out slightly and folding the sides into the middle. Okay, it says form into an oblong by flattening the dough out slightly and folding the sides into the middle. Roll the whole lot up. The top should be smooth with a join running along the length of the base. Put your dough into the prepared tin, making sure the join is underneath. I think I did that correctly. I'm honestly, I can't be sure. So we're gonna pray, you and I. Okay, so I'm gonna take my pan. Oh, it looks like I got a little tear there. I just want this to be really pretty, so I'm gonna you don't want to overwork it at this point. Like, you don't want to make it tough, but I do want it to be pretty because, you know, this is my first time. Okay, I think that looks okay. So I'm gonna take my loaf pan and I'm just gonna plop that guy in there. So we're gonna let this little guy rest. I have a proving bag. I'm gonna use a Target bag because that's just the kind of person that I am. So I'm gonna make a mess of this little tin. And then we're just gonna tuck this guy in. So you don't want the bag to touch the bread. So just kind of tuck the edges under and then just kind of balloon it up so that it's got a lot of space to grow. Just gonna leave that off to the side and we're gonna let him grow for another hour. All right, let's check on our bread. During this stage, I've started to preheat the oven to 220 degrees Celsius. That's about 428 Fahrenheit. My oven runs a little bit hot, so I put it on 425, no big deal. And then you need a roasting tray. This is gonna go in the bottom of your oven. So I'm gonna pop that in there. And this is gonna heat up with the oven so it's nice and hot when the oven is ready to go. I'm gonna check on our little baby. Ooh-wee, that is looking good. Okay, and keep your bag, reduce, reuse, recycle. Okay, and then when you tap on it, you can see when you lightly prod it, it is bouncing right back. So we are good to go. If your house is a little bit hotter, you might be dealing with a loaf that's rising really, really fast. So just kind of keep an eye on that. And so I'm gonna dust this with a little bit of flour. Or be gentle at this point because your bread is fragile. Sharp serrated blade is ideal. I'm just gonna go whoop. I don't love the way that happened, but it happened the way that it happened. Okay, so I lost a little bit of air there, no big deal. And I do want to just like pat down these little peaks that came out because they will burn like crazy if you're not careful. Okay, so I just slashed that right down the middle. And then I'm gonna wait for the oven to heat up. While I'm doing that, I'm gonna fill up my kettle. I've just got an electric kettle. You want to fill up that roasting tray with hot water. You can do it straight from the tap if you have really hot water, but I like to just go ahead and boil some up. it's time. All right, so the oven is preheated. I've got my water boiled. My loaf is ready to go. Okay, so this is a quick move. We're gonna pop this guy out of here. We're gonna carefully pour. The hot boiling water into the oven. Okay, this isn't as quick as I had hoped. Okay, and then we're gonna pop that bad boy in there. We're gonna close it up. We're gonna bake for 30 minutes and I'll see you then. All right, our loaf is out of the oven. It is looking golden and beautiful. I'm gonna flip it onto this rack just to make sure it's cooked all the way through. So just before it cools down and everything. Okay, when you tap it, if it sounds hollow, we are good to go. So just flip that bad boy over. All right, and there is our finished white loaf of bread. I'm gonna slice this up after it cools a little bit, and I'm probably gonna make a sandwich with it, and I'm very excited. Thanks for watching.